How's it going, comic art fans? Welcome back to another auction and market talk. And so we have our my regular partner YoKuri on, and a very special guest. Uh, Needs no introduction, but we'll introduce him anyway. Renowned collector Gene Park. Thanks for joining us, Gene.
My pleasure to be here.
Honored to have you here. And so sharing the screen, trying to fake everyone out. No, we're not going to be talking about any Garfield
I
today.
thought we're going to talk about every Garfield that was for sale in the Heritage Auction.
Yeah.
There's
in
just
great
not
detail.
enough Garfield available these days.
Hey,
should be
feel
done in
free
about
to
4 hours.
comment if you watched the entire Garfield auction. I know most people leave by that point, but
Oh my God,
yeah.
that strip is so hilarious.
All that lasagna, man.
The early ones are good. The early ones were pretty good.
They really are. Like I mentioned before we started recording, I think I've got like 5 or 6 of them now.
Yeah.
You know, I feel like I always feel like I should have one. You know, shouldn't everyone have at these
Everybody
prices?
should have a Garfield. Yeah,
Everyone should have a
absolutely.
Garfield.
And everybody can have a Garfield. There are thousands of them.
Yes. So maybe we'll make that happen. Motivated by Gene, but we had an auction this past week at Heritage. Their whatever quarterly. Now it feels like almost bi-monthly. Some big auction that they're having, and yeah, I guess the same of what we've seen. I don't know if you guys have any thoughts on it, but it was remarkably consistent with probably the last auction and maybe the auction before. You guys have any thoughts just overall on what you saw?
I would say the last auction felt a bit soft to me, and I think a lot of people agreed with that. This auction I think has been a little more contentious. I think, I've talked to a lot of people about this. I think people realize that the market has definitely come off the boil. The really good stuff I think is kind of leveled out. I don't think it's like the market's like not running away anymore, but the good stuff is still holding at a very high level. I think there's definitely some softness seeping into the lower quality lots. And as we've seen, at least in the past 2, if not 3 cycles, if you try to flip something that you bought like a year or 2 ago, it's probably not going to go well for you. When I say flip, I mean resell. Not that everyone buys with the intention of quickly reselling, but there were some brutal beatdowns the last couple auction cycles.
Yeah, we're definitely going to talk about. I think some of that sad for. I don't know. Maybe some people want to hear it. Some people want to know more about it. But I think I actually had like 6 pieces consigned in this auction, and various hold periods. Some as long as 5 years, some as short as I don't know 7-8 months, and surprisingly, I did okay. I just got destroyed on one, which was a private buy, that I probably overpaid slightly for, had no intention of selling, but, recent purchases made me kick it out. But, overall, it was like, I don't know. What did I say it was? Maybe like less than 10% loss overall. This is after all fees and whatever.
From my perspective, that's not too bad because I got murdered in my last bunch of consignments. I bought something. I bought something chunky in January, and on February 3rd, I consigned like a lot of pieces. Just like basically chopped a lot of stuff out. It was all supposed to go into the weeklies. Heritage sat on it for 3 months before they posted it, and they finally posted it just in time for the market to get soft. I'd say including fees on average, I probably took overall like a 30% haircut on all of those pieces. It's like the first time that I've ever consigned that I've gotten murdered on stuff. And I think it's just a function of the market, particularly the kind of stuff that I was selling, sort of weekly auction, indie type stuff. But yeah, no, it's not. And I think what this means is that when people see auctions like the last couple, if they have anything really good, they're not going to put it out there. So I think it's this kind of thing where like weakness begets weakness, because you're just going to have lower quality stuff end up in the auctions, stuff that people won't be able to be willing to pay premium prices for. Maybe the absence of those types of pieces will elevate some of the middling pieces, but it just feels like we're going to be in this situation because pretty much everybody I know. I mean, if all the collectors who are listening, if they survey all their buddies, right? I mean, who is like flush and is just flinging dollars at the hobby right now? It doesn't sound. I mean, well, I know
there's a few guys out there.
There are a few guys out there.
Yeah, we know who they are.
Yeah,
we know who you are.
I mean, I feel like there, last 2+ years,
we're that guy.
There's been just a huge kind of like backstop in the market. We know that there were new collectors that came in just, going nuts, probably getting, tens of pieces every auction and blowing up prices. And from what I hear, they're not in the mix necessarily these days, or some of the recent auctions. And yeah, I mean,
one
I feel like
they bid on a third of all lots in every mega auction is going to move the needle, right? I do think that there was somebody there who was probably bidding on like a third to 50% of all lots. It's kind of crazy, but
here's an observation from me is at least the last day, which was the smaller kind of pieces, and I feel like Sunday wasn't like weak, but what I did notice was, and I've been noticing over the last few auctions, proxy bids have been doing very well. So there's that internet bid that opens, and it just feels like a lot of pieces, a live bidder might give it a go, but once they see, oh, there's this pre-bid in here, they give up pretty quickly, and it just feels like there's a level of intimidation there, right? Where someone doesn't want to like take it too far. I don't know if that's what you guys see, but
I don't know. On the few pieces that I was bidding on Sunday, like I had bids in the internet bidding session. Sometimes I was the high bid going into the live session, and then I at least the pieces that I was bidding on, there was some spirited competition, and not just like one other guy. I mean, you could tell that there were at least a couple other guys in most cases. So, and it's kind of strange because I mean that I believe that was like an 8-hour session on Sunday. I mean, I can't believe that there are that many people who are actually at their computers and not just preloaded on Heritage Live that are actively bidding on these lots. I guess there are, because I mean, I guess you can see internet, phone, Heritage Live, and there was definitely some, at least on the few lots that I was, interested in, there was definitely some spirited bidding going on.
Yeah, well, that's because you buy good stuff. You have good taste.
Well, I try not to buy the bad stuff.
Yeah, the stuff Jason and I bought.
Maybe it's because I was just looking at my consignments. It's so weak right now. Okay, so what? We'll talk about this more as we go. Yeah. But let's we've all chosen a few pieces, and hopefully we'll have some fun discussion on some of them. First one is Gene.
Yeah, this Frank Miller Daredevil 169 page. And if you're not familiar with this market, you may see the 66,000, look at the comps and say, oh, well, that did pretty well. But it has unfortunately a bit of a negative backstory behind it. I mean, there's one guy who was the consigner, I believe, of this piece. I want to say this was maybe late 2019 or sometime in 2020. He was very interested in getting a Miller Daredevil page with Elektra on it. I believe from like the 168, 181 run when it's Frank Miller stories, pencils, and he approached me, candidly offered me a knockout price for one of the Elektra pages in my collection, and I think a lot of people would have taken that price, but I just love my page too much. I politely declined, and I heard that he had approached some other people with other good pages, including a couple that, at least one that I had actually sold a couple years prior, and I think he offered like more than 4 times what I sold that page for, and amazingly, pretty much just everybody turned him down. So I don't know if he kind of in his head thought, well, okay, well, these pages must be even more than what I'm offering. And so then I heard he started offering this kind of price for any page. And literally the first thought I had was, I mean, is he really offering that for like that 169 page that I know is out there? And it turns out that he did. And I don't know if it gets a little hazy here. I mean, I heard that even the owner of that page turned down the offer initially, but apparently, he ended up with it. So I don't know if the former owner reconsidered, or if the buyer even upped the offer. But anyway, he ended up paying a very large price for it. And then fast forward to a few months ago, and he comes on CAF. He tries to sell this and some other pieces privately. I guess he needed to raise money quickly for a home purchase, and I guess they didn't sell. So he consigned this to Heritage, and boy, I mean, this is this is a very, very steep decline from the purchase price. I mean, he had somebody posted some kind of
comic I believe it was a comic art tracker sold listing, which said 150.
Yeah, and it's my understanding that the purchase price was there or higher, so I suspect he was just trying to get his money back out of it. And so do the math. I mean, 150 to 66 minus Heritage's cut. I mean, it's bad. And I also believe, I mean, this is kind of public enough that because people can see what he had on CAF, that I believe he also had that Ronin page that was purchased for 34,000 or whatever, and just resold for 13. So yeah, I mean, definitely a not a
it's as bad as I've ever heard. I don't know, Gene, you've been doing this a while. I mean, that is
it's pretty bad. Yeah, I mean, and we're not talking about something niche. Like, I know look, I've sold stuff at bigger percentage losses, but that was like niche material. I mean, Miller Daredevil and Elektra pages, I mean, they are so hard to come by, and you just figured that there would have been more strength on this. It's definitely a bad beat for the consignor.
So, okay, talking about this piece.
Yeah.
I mean, let's say there's some agreement that, if it's not A+, we're off, let's say, somewhere around 30% from the peak on a lot of pieces. So do you think maybe like early last year or sometime last year, this piece could have gotten to six figures, 100,000?
It's tough to say. Like I said, he just paid up so much for it at the time. I don't know if the market caught up or not. Yeah, it's just I don't know if there are other people. I mean, I guess not. Maybe looking at the the auction result. I mean, just do the math. There's just not that many of these pages available, and the ones that are, the best ones are in some of the hardest collections to price stuff out of. So, I thought it would do. I thought it would do better. I mean, I didn't think for a second that he was going to get that 150 back, but I was thinking more like maybe 90. Around there. And yeah, I mean, 66 seems pretty low. Yeah.
I feel like Miller was extremely hot for a bit there. I mean, you're talking about some of those Dark Knight kind of numbers, and you know, it felt like he was staying hot even when other things were weakening, you know. But you know, looking at this auction and maybe even the last auction was with you know, the Dark Knight page in the last auction, there's a Dark Knight page in this auction, and they both did, you know, around somewhere around 50,000, right? And you know, I mean, you're going from a crappy Superman page, you know, a few auctions ago for over 100, like 100 plus, to, you know, 50 to 60 now. And then
Yeah, well,
this, I don't know.
as kind of a general statement. So I spoke. I'm not going to mention which auction house, but I spoke to a comic art specialist at one of the big three comic art auction houses a couple weeks ago, and he said very candidly that the market is becoming more discriminating. I mean, like a year and a half ago, everything was on fire, but now it's gotten to the point where kind of the second and third tier stuff is weak enough that, you know, he's getting, you know, some grumbling from consigners. Not everyone's happy with the results like they might have been 18 months ago. So yeah, no, it's definitely a real thing. And look, I mean, Electra pages, they're very rare. And look, if like a truly AA plus one came to market, I have no doubt that it would go for 150 plus even in this market. But you know, I think in this market, you know, if it's not that at that level, there's definitely a big risk that you know, it's going to be soft versus where things were.
The aesthetics of the piece, I mean, the figures are kind of small. You know, there's a little marker fading on it.
Marker
You
fade,
know, and you know, it's not like the most compelling page. If you're a checklist investor, you're like Elektra in costume, Daredevil in costume, Bullseye in costume, like boom, I got all the main characters there. So I can see, you know, I can definitely see that. And from this period of the run, also with you know, really Miller doing the pencil work, I understand that also commands a premium. Yeah, I just think I was thinking the same as Eugene. I was kind of thinking like you know, 80, 90, and you know, it's just unfortunate. I feel bad for the guy. Because, you know, obviously, like, you know, you're trying to get a page, this is specifically what you want, and you keep getting shot down. So you finally like, okay, well, nobody who has a page is willing to sell to me for 100, so I have to go to 150 to get one, you know?
Yeah.
So like that's like the private market is kind of different from the public market in a weird way, because then he's the one buyer in the world that was willing to pay that price, right? So without him in the mix, like there's no one else to push it there. So
right.
it's tough. It's a tough beat. I wonder who got it. I mean, that would be interesting if like the original seller bought it back.
I know the original seller. I would highly doubt that it was him. I mean, I don't know for sure, but I suspect it was somebody new.
You got a free 80 grand. He's got a free 80 grand. Oh man, that's surprising. Yeah, I mean, I would be like, I mean, assuming he didn't go like dump it into more art, you know. I mean, I'd be watching it like, oh man, I can get this back for, you know, this number, you know. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a big believer in pay for the A. I mean, this is like a surface A in terms of like the character content, but just the aesthetics of the page. You know,
I mean,
it reads more like a C aesthetics with like A characters in it, you know, and so it makes
beggars can't be choosers, though, yo. You know, it's just like,
no, yeah,
I don't know. I mean, I've almost paid up to try to get stuff out of collections, you know, and you're putting out huge numbers usually, you know, very aggressive offers to try to get that stuff, and sometimes if it lands, you know, it's your own worst enemy, you know, because I mean, if you love it, if you know you're going to keep it, you know, then that's that, right? There's no need to really worry. But this scenario is like a nightmare, you know?
Yeah, I've done this. Like exactly what this guy did. I've done this. Not this dollar figure, but I've definitely done it. And if I sent, like I've got a Watchmen page that I don't think anyone else in the world would like as much as me. And you know, if it went to auction, I would get murdered on it. But I love it. I'm holding it. It's the one I have. and it's the first appearance of erectile dysfunction. So that's got to be worth something. But I love that page. I love that page. Just the storytelling in the page, what Moore does with time, just the illustration, everything. I love it. But no one else would. And if I would get murdered on it, I would lose 60% of the value.
For sure, right now, for sure,
100%. So my heart goes out to the guy who consigned it. We've all done this kind of shit before, and fuck, if I had to buy a house, I probably would suffer this.
I mean, I've come to the realization recently in this market. I mean, there's some markets where ship it to Heritage, but this type of market right now, unless it's like A+,
yeah,
you're not guaranteed anything,
Yeah, and right. Even if it's A+, people are going to worry. So man, they're going to get some shitty consignments, the next couple of big ones, I bet.
Yeah, and it makes sense to even put it up privately on CAF at a loss, at a decent sized loss, at a realistic number, knowing that that's still going to be better than it just doing one of these. It's just
and it'll be a win-win for the seller and the buyer. So
yeah.
And so if you're, I mean, this is a forced selling situation, and I mean that's I've always said, and I'm sure you guys agree, this market really, the art market, I don't think can crash. It's hard for it to crash because there aren't that many leveraged forced sellers.
Right.
You're not seeing stuff get blown out, but this is a scenario where this, he's forced to do it. He's going to do it, and has to live with the results. And is not willing to take the risk or go, hey, you know what, I might go lower. Why don't I just I'll take a 30% loss at 100,
And in a better macro, there might have been one other guy to push the winner.
Right.
And they might have toggled it up to 80, 90, whatever, So it's just kind of bad luck that like one rich daddy just didn't show up, or I don't know, decided to go to the Hamptons, looking at his fucking phone, I don't know, but yeah.
I mean, Gene, is this on a broader scale kind of, what we might see as far as when people age out, large supply gets to the market, and who knows whether or not heirs or whatever, grandchildren will be discriminating as far as getting rid of the stuff.
I mean, at this point, I mean, the market's kind of evolved so strangely over the last, the time that I've been in the hobby, which is now, a little over 21 years. And so who knows for sure, but I mean, that is definitely something that I worry about longer term. I mean, as you said, I mean, it's kind of hard for it to just kind of suddenly crash because there aren't a lot of leverage sellers. There are a lot of well-heeled people who just mostly do what they did in the last downturn, which was quite short, and just sit through it. But at some point, you're going to have all this stuff at hugely appreciated prices, and I mean, the demographics at some point are going to turn. I mean, it's you're getting new blood in now, but I mean, a lot of it is kind of the same generation, a little bit younger. Once, I mean, the reality is this hobby is quite young. I mean, it's really only developed. I mean, the modern version of this hobby since Heritage came in 2001, 2002. I mean, we're still, I mean, the people who've been there from the beginning, a lot of these guys are still around. I mean, we haven't even gone through like a real full long-term cycle yet. So, it's coming. I mean, the question is, I mean, when? I mean, is it 5 years, 15 years, 25 years? I at this point, I've stopped trying to figure it out, because there's been a lot of different things that have happened, obviously, that have been very important and impactful along the way. But that is definitely a long-term concern of mine.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
sorry, go ahead, Jason.
Yeah. Sorry. No, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, no, I mean, I was just thinking that it's also, there is a new demographic of, maybe younger collectors coming in, but the stuff they're they're buying. It's like the stuff that the new artists are making, like comics that are being created today. So, but they might as well not exist for the purposes of this page, or anything that we have deep nostalgia for at our age. For a 50-year-old guy, I mean, it's like $66,000. Is somebody going to want to buy 10 Daniel Warren Johnson covers, or 5 of them, or whatever the number is going to be, five DWJ covers, or are they going to want to buy this piece of incredible comic book history, right? But are they really? Did they have that chill, like waiting for that issue to come out, and just like oh my God, this is transforming comics. Like
Yeah,
there's
I
nothing
mean,
like that out here. Like I don't know if they're gonna feel that the way we felt that. You read these, they still hold up. Oh my God, I reread this. I reread this run. It is freaking amazing. So all you young bloods out there, I mean, this is canon, and it is amazing. So you have to read it. But yeah, I mean, they will choose to overpay for other stuff. Yeah.
I mean, I look. I think that, like you said, this is canon. It is still relevant. I mean, the Daredevil, Elektra. I mean, these are characters that are still being used today and everything. I mean, so I think they're not going to fade away like some things might. But yeah, definitely there's a generational shift going on. In fact, I was having a discussion just today with a friend of mine. I'm not going to name him, but so he's basically a Bronze Age collector of Avengers and Avengers adjacent material, shall we say, and he's kind of like disappointed by kind of the softness or softening in that market. And if you'll just remember, like it wasn't that long ago when this stuff was among the hottest stuff in the market. I mean, at the Avenger stuff would just get the craziest price. I mean, I don't remember exactly when this was, but the first movie came out in like what 2012 or something like that, and so kind of probably around then or kind of mid 2010s. I mean, Avengers, Bronze Age, Marvel art. Somebody, a friend of mine paid just gargantuan money for that splash, that rooftop splash that was on Heritage, and that stuff was going so nuts. And it's not these. I mean, it's not like super weak, but it's not. I mean, you see the stuff that's getting the attention. I mean, it's kind of stuff that starts kind of the mid 80s into the 90s. Sandman and some of the these later first appearance type things, and that stuff's going like what just went like that. I mean, it's a little earlier, but that first Legion page in this auction, maybe somebody will talk about that. That stuff's going nuts, and like the Avenger stuff, I mean, it's hanging in there, but it's not like it's any great shakes. I mean, nobody's saying, "Oh wow, look how hot that stuff is," but 7 years ago, that stuff was on fire.
Yeah. The that New Mutants First Legion, it was up there. It was like
there it is.
What is this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Top 8. In this auction, compared to bunch of crazy Silver Age, a complete story of Frazetta, Calvin and Hobbes, and then like First Legion. I'm not saying it's nothing, but this is clearly like the new demographic.
I don't know who bought it, but I don't know who bought it, but I can guess. I mean, it's got to be one of these. Yeah, exactly. New money, first appearance oriented, kind of their prime nostalgia probably starts right around this point and kind of goes on from there. But I mean, a lot of these guys go back as well in terms of first appearances and whatnot. And of course, Legion had that show for 3 seasons or whatever on Fox. And so I think it's all still very relevant in their minds, and that definitely appealed to a younger demographic. So there you have it.
Yeah, Jason, put it back on the Garfield page.
It's too low now. It's too low on the list.
Okay. Well, no, you could have that Daredevil page, or you could have 200 Garfields. What would you rather have?
All right, let's move on. Next one. Yo, John
Yes.
Salardo,
This is so weird. This is a
Adventures in the
7-page
Darkness.
complete story. John Salardo, never heard of him, but there was just something about the story that fascinated me. So I would encourage you to just read the story. And they actually, I think this is beyond the copyright protection date. So there are these rando, like on Amazon. There's like rando reprints of all this stuff, and it's pre-code horror.
Standard Comics.
Hmm.
Pre-code horror. I like a lot of the. It's a kind of a cool technique. It looks like they took some kind of a wheel with white paint and rolled it across the figure to make the rain,
Oh, wow.
something like that. And I just like the storytelling, and the story itself is this fascinating story of this greedy woman who gets this magic necklace, and it starts to give her everything she wants, and then it leads to unintended consequences at the end. But it's super creepy. It's really haunting, and I just loved it. And I bid on it, but I wasn't willing to pay all this. I figured, okay, well, I can just enjoy reading it, but I don't need to own it. But yeah, I just thought it was cool. That's it.
Just,
Yeah, I
just
mean,
one comment on this. I mean, I love what you just said. And I one of the things I really lament about the current state of the comic art market / hobby is that I feel like a lot of people aren't looking at things like this. If it's not movie tie-in or first appearance or super hot book mainstream, whatever, I think a lot of people just overlook the stuff. I mean, this has no characters, but it's really cool art and story, and there's a lot of
mhm.
stuff like that out there that I think are just completely ignored by a huge segment of the hobby, especially the next generation, which is, I think, is a bit of a shame.
Yeah, I think anybody would read this story and they'd be like, "Oh my goodness!" Like if they put this story in one of those anthology
Hmm.
type things that come out from time to time,
Yeah.
it would hold up. I think it's
A
that
lot of the standard comic stuff is collected still, and this is around the time Toth was working for them, and Solardo he inked Toth for a lot of the stories in there.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
and yeah, I mean
Interesting. Yeah.
it's great, very great draftsman, and look at
Mhm.
this kind of different techniques here,
Yeah. No, it's good. It's cool to see like through somebody else's eyes, right? Everybody's going to see
Hmm.
different things, but oh my gosh, this is creepy and horrible,
Yeah.
right? She's
Yeah,
turning into a snake,
Wow, that's amazing.
right? I mean, just sort of the metaphor of that too, for how she kind of sacrificed her morals in the pursuit of riches. Um, yeah, it's
great
really great.
lettering here
The
at the
graphs,
end.
yeah. Oh, the little I didn't notice that the end is a water puddle.
Yeah, part of the puddle.
That's cool.
It's pretty cool that like
Stuff.
this for 70 years this thing has stayed together, and
Yeah.
hopefully it continues
Uh,
to, but
and
this
I
is
think it
part of
was
it.
big too. I think it was these were big pages.
Hmm. Hmm.
I think. Let me see. What
Yeah, they're twice up.
Twice up.
Yeah. Damn it, man. Realization of missing out. Anyway,
Yeah. Six
Romo.
dollars. Yo, this was easy buy for you, man. Could have been.
Yeah, you know what? I'm gonna buy the book for $20 on Amazon and
Yeah. Standards. Yeah, the standard stuff is it might be out of print, but
no, it's not. It's actually like somebody reprinted it. You
okay.
so
All right, next one is I chose this the 2001 Space Odyssey Kirby.
wow, that went hot.
Obviously most people have seen the movie, and important scene in the movie. But I feel like it went decently well. Strong number. For the time. Yeah, I mean, I just had my eye on this page, and it felt a little bit different from, Kirby's take felt different from Kubrick's take, but you know, uh, I think it's a well remembered book, and clearly, multiple people felt some affinity towards it. Um,
Yeah,
yeah,
I love all the changing perspective lines in every panel, like the lines are moving in a different direction, and just the composition of the whole thing as an overall page. Like if you kind of squint your eyes, it's like kind of a cool abstract painting in itself. I dig this. This is cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like there was a ton of Kirby in this auction, and not to say that there isn't always, some amount of Kirby, but it felt like a lot of Kirby. And my expectation going forward is there probably will continue to be nonstop Kirby of some sort. Um, and there was a lot of pages that were to be had for under 10,000. Marvel pages, Black Panther pages,
If you
Thor
like
pages.
Nazis, there was like a Nazi page.
Was there a Nazi page?
There's a Nazi page.
Okay.
Aesthetically pleasing, but I can't buy a Nazi page.
But yeah, I wonder what will happen there, because there's just so much Kirby art, and I want to buy a lot of Kirby art, but should I jump at what is there now or anticipate that, it's going to continue to come and hopefully catch a moment of weakness where people aren't paying attention or something like that.
Yeah, there's so much of this out there. I at one point I had a lot more. I only have a couple of Kirby pieces now, but at one point I had pretty decent Kirby haul. And one thing that always kind of bothered me was like, these are kind of, most of what I had was, kind of nice pages, but we know that there's a lot of this stuff out there, a lot of stuff that's really has not seen the light of day. And at some point, I think that stuff is going to eventually make it to the marketplace, and the kind of the stuff that is out there now that people were paying up for maybe doesn't look like such a great buy at that point. So, I ended up letting most of it go, all but one really, and I bought one page this year. And but yeah, that always kind of bothered me about what was out there. Like for example, I had this twice up Fantastic Four Kirby Synod page, fight page. It was a good page. Maybe you'd call it like an A- page, but relative to kind of what we know is out there. But kind of like some of the other stuff ever did make it to the market, I think it would kind of look more like BB plus. So I was like, do I still want to be holding it at that time when that happens? I was like, nah, I think it's gotta really be at a certain level for me to want to hold something like that long term. And so I ended up letting that one go a while back.
What was the Kirby piece that you kept?
Oh, my Tales of Suspense 94 page, which is that's going to hold up. It's just an amazing page. So I was like, yep. I'm happy with this. I thought I was going to be happy with just that, but ended up buying an Avengers, early Avengers page earlier this year.
Oh yeah, you showed me. That was really cool. Yeah. That was really cool.
Awesome. So, and now you're happy with Kirby, Gene?
Never say never, but I'm happier with two than it was with one.
Yeah, I just feel like next one's one of your choices, Kirby Avengers 5 page.
Oh yes. So a friend of mine ended up buying this. I didn't know that he was after it, but this used to be mine. I think I bought this maybe around 2012-ish or 2010, 2012 from Albert. Actually, let me look this up, because this is probably going to be an interesting math experiment. Just kind of the evolution of the Kirby market.
A great page. Actually, we saw that who got it. He posted it on CAF, I think, or no, on Instagram.
On Instagram, yeah.
Yeah, right. Okay, so yeah, I bought this in 2012 from Albert, 12,500, and I ended up selling it exactly 6 years later, which was 2018, for 15 grand. It really had not moved a lot in that time. I don't think I overpaid for it at the time either. It's just that there was this period I remember very distinctly, especially around 2013, 2014, that Kirby had this great run when people grew up with the stuff, and kind of the old timers were just everything was about Kirby in the 90s and the 2000s and stuff, and a lot of other stuff had a lot of catching up to do to Kirby. So Kirby actually didn't go up all that much for that big chunk of time in the 2010s, and then but then like everything else that's good over the last 4 or 5 years, things have gone crazy, especially since 2020. So
generally a triple in the last few years, right? Like for anything quality is pretty much triple.
Well, I mean, it varies. I mean, I think like anything good, I would say, is up at a minimum of like 50%, and a lot of stuff is up 100, 150, 200%. Yeah, sure. But anyway, 15 grand 5 years ago, 38 grand today. Yeah, I mean, who knew? Who knew that it was going to catch fire after being very stagnant for a long time?
Well, I assume you didn't spend it on a vacation. I assumed you put it back into more art. So you probably did.
Well, 2018, I'm sure I put it in another art then. Yeah. But yeah, this is a Paul Reinman inked page, and it's kind of, it's early, it's crude. But it is very historic, so I kind of missed this one. I kind of not just because of the price. I mean, I would have said this, even a month ago. I kind of regretted letting this one go, but I liked the other Cap page I had better, and didn't feel I had to have two of them. So
yeah, I've done that too. Or I've got like 2 or 3 pages of the same thing, and sure, I like number 2 and number 3, but they're always going to be number 2 and number 3 to me.
Right.
Not throwing shade on this page. I mean, this page is awesome, and
it's awesome. It's awesome.
Yeah. I mean, it's a close number 2, and I think what is it? First appearance of Cap throwing the shield. Is that right?
Yeah, apparently, yeah.
In the silver age. Yeah.
If I had known that, I might have kept it, but I didn't look.
If you'd known that it would matter to somebody at some point.
Yeah, I guess it's good to have encyclopedic reading knowledge.
Yeah,
exactly. Oh my God! Well, but, this stuff is not for reading. In this era, it's just like, oh my God.
I was looking at this too, and I was just kind of turned off by the inks. Like it just felt pretty overbearing, on Kirby, and just.
I mean, if you look at like panel 3, I mean that's a great panel, but yeah, look at the shield, and then if you look at if you go to my calf gallery, look at this shield throwing on that, and Sinnott inking it. I mean, it's night and day. I mean, this is like caveman art by comparison.
Yeah.
But it's still, it's the second
Avengers number 5.
Yeah, Avengers number 5, and Avengers 4, I believe, is missing in action. So it's the first. So no, it's a great pickup. I mean,
historic for sure.
Yeah.
And I don't know. Was it for now? Is this a good deal, Gene?
I don't know. I think this is actually the same price I paid for my Avengers page, my Avengers 6 page. I like my page better just because it looks nicer, but this is arguably more historic. So, I mean, I think it's in the ballpark.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think aesthetics still plays a role. For some. Less important, just kind of whatever stats or checkpoints, list items. But I mean, I wouldn't kick it out of bed, as they say. Someone wanted to give it to me, but yeah.
I would love to own like an early issue page, just one early issue page. I mean, just doesn't matter what the title is, I guess, I mean, like there's like a Johnny Craig Iron Man that I was looking at today from issue 2, right? And I thought, oh, that's kind of cool. I own like a piece of history on something, because like I used to collect comics.
I feel like
a long time ago, so I kind of get that.
There were a couple of Kirby pages at the last Comic Link auction. I don't have it up here, but there was I believe there was an early Avengers page. I don't know, another early Avengers page, and then an Incredible Hulk page. And they feels like, I mean, they looked better, and it feels like they might have performed better than this. So I'm not sure, but
But yeah, wouldn't kick this one out of bed.
Oh yeah.
I'd make sweet, sweet love to it.
You know, for us mortals, or for me, more you two are the big boys, but mortal like me, opportunity cost is the word, and so you know, I gotta be a little more picky, you know, where that money goes. I think.
Yeah, well, wait till you see the piece that I bought this auction.
All right.
All right, yo, Paul Pope.
Oh, okay. Yeah, Paul Pope. I mean, what a great page. You know, him activating the sonic, putting in his earplugs, activating the sonics to take out the dogs, the Rottweilers. I mean, I remember this page was marketed on CAF. It was a European collector marketed, and I think he was asking like, I don't know, 9 or 10 for it. And I was like, fuck you, that's too much. You know, fuck you. I was like, I'll give you 6, and he's like, fuck off. And then I think he sold it to somebody in Eastern Europe, and then the guy owned it for like a hot minute and was like, oh dear, I've made an he was like I've made an error and I must sell it now. So then that got sold, and then whoever bought it, you know, so it's like it's changed
Oh wow.
hands like 3 times in the last 2 years. It's kind of weird, but I feel like Pope Bats has been, you know, picking up. I mean, like a Commissioner Gordon page or something like that. You know, his storytelling is amazing. You know, but it won't reach this type of a price. Obviously, people kind of dig the Batman, but yeah, you saw what happened with the first 4 pages that went in the last European auction. Which, you know, sort of interesting backstory on that one. But they went for big price. I think the whole thing went for, what was it, 71 with the juice, something like that, for 4 pages.
71. Yeah.
Yeah,
75.
71. And then the model sheet, which was super cool.
Yeah.
I know the guy who won that. I mean, that's awesome piece. One for 15. I mean, imagine that on your wall. That'd be great.
Mm.
So I feel like Pope Batman Year 100 is starting to pick up, but this is just a great page. I just
Yeah, I
love
mean,
love it with
interiors reaching the price of a cover from 5 years ago.
yeah. I know the guy who owns that cover too. I mean,
I mean, you get the Fang premium here, you know, and so
fangs,
not
yeah,
all the pages have him wearing his
yeah,
his teeth mouthpiece and
and the dogs. I mean, like, how epic is that first scene when the dogs are chasing him on the rooftop, and you get the dogs again, and I just think it's just great. I should have paid the price back then.
did you bid on this, yo, at all?
I did, but I dropped out. I was really
At
wimpy.
10. It opened at 10, and so there was
Yeah,
whatever.
I was really wimpy. I didn't. It was sort of like a half-hearted effort because I already got 2 great representative pieces from this. So you know, the need for me to jump, but it would be an up. I think it might be an upgrade from the one I have. So, you know, from the page I have, but I really
And
loved it.
the teeth, man. Yeah, the teeth page, man.
Teeth. The teeth.
Yeah.
Important.
Yeah, the bottom panel is kind of like a, you know, it's not much of an exclamation point on the page. It's kind of like a waiting for the reveal on the next page.
Mhm.
But yeah, the top 3, holy moly.
I mean, you know, when you have a page like this at 19 by 24, which is this is how big it is. I mean, you know, of course, you'd love to have Batman on every panel, but just this one panel is like, you know, almost a regular size board right here. You know.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
So,
great.
guy's a genius. He is a genius.
okay, awesome, and glad to see Pope doing well. I'm eating my words. You know, I did say, you know, many videos ago how weak Pope is at charity. And
Well, this is like an A. You know, this is like
as
an
soon
A
as I said
minus.
that,
I mean,
man,
like,
as soon as I
whatever.
said
You know,
that,
the higher aesthetics, it'll always.
Gene,
Yeah,
are
but
you
yeah,
much of a
eat your
Pope fan?
words. Eat your words.
Yeah, I like Batman 100 a lot. I mean, after I read that, I went on kind of a Pope binge, mini Pope binge. I ended up buying that one of the 100% covers. I think when
Oh,
Berkey
awesome.
had it. Did you buy one too, Jason? Or
I won one at Heritage,
yeah, right.
the number 3, and I remember the one you have. It was on eBay for a
Yeah,
long time.
right.
Yeah, and and then when you shared it on Cal, I'm like, why didn't I buy that? What is wrong with me? Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Hiding in plain sight.
needed you to knock some sense into me, and then
Yeah.
I wouldn't be denied on the one that popped up at Heritage. So,
Yeah.
oh, all right. Oh, this is me.
Mm.
Mignola, the Lobster Johnson cover, Essentials. It's not Hellboy. It's Lobster Johnson, and it's not like crazy interesting as a cover.
Yeah. I
But I
like
felt
some
like,
of the
you know
cards.
what?
It's
I
kind
don't
of
know.
cool.
I feel
Yeah.
like this is not that strong of a price. It's still a Mignola cover.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I expected it to go stronger. This feels like 3 to 4 years ago price.
Yeah.
Um,
People pay big bucks for those like con sketches of Hellboy in the same exact pose, which I don't understand.
yeah,
Like why not? I mean, why not a little bit more for like a published piece? But I don't have no idea who Lobster Johnson is, so maybe that's the problem.
you know what? I upgraded recently to a Hellboy in Hell cover.
Mm.
I used to have like a BPRD cover that had no Hellboy on it. It was just like aesthetically nice piece with like the a jaguar moon, but I bought that originally around this number, around 3,500. I
Oh
ended up
yeah,
selling it maybe a couple years ago for like over five, over
yeah.
five. And so then recently, because I always wanted a proper Hellboy. Um, and so, I mean, it felt like it sold fairly easily at a calf live. Um, and then now looking at this, it's just, I don't know. I mean, I remember seeing prices around 5,000 for many kind of BPRD non-Hellboy stuff on dealer sites, on calf, and they would sell, they would
Mhm.
sell. And then now at auction, I don't know. Maybe it's just not interesting enough. I don't know.
Yeah, I wish he wouldn't use so much water in his ink.
Mm.
Lets him throw down the black a lot easier, but just from an art collector's perspective,
You don't like this washy almost.
yeah, no, because the way it's going to reproduce, and they're going to use Photoshop and just sort of.
Yeah, he seems to do it purposefully, like not just to save ink. He from the interviews I've seen of him, he prefers it visually this way. I don't know.
Oh, okay, rather than like a jet black. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe he's just lazy. I don't know. But yeah, I'm highlighting this because I thought it was on the weaker side,
Yeah.
relative to the past few years.
I could see. I mean, he has to fill in so much black that
Yeah.
we try to make it look like mint every time, and probably gets boring too. I get that.
All right, Neil Adams, Gene, Detective Comics.
Yeah, I mean, I think this was the first lot of the Friday session. I think I ended up missing it. I only noticed later on that it had only sold for what 12,000, and that just struck me. Look, I mean, this is not like A+ page by any stretch, but it is. I mean, I think it's really well drawn. I mean, it's got some good poses, and 12,000 just seemed like, let's put it this way, if I did not have a Neil Adams Batman example, I would have been perfectly happy to take this page for 12,000. I mean, it's to me, I mean, it's not a great page, but it's a good enough page, and the price, like a great page nowadays is probably going to be what, double or more. So this just struck me as a good deal for somebody.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think Neil Adams seems dated to people?
I think probably, unfortunately, I mean, there was a time when you'd think that, look, I mean, it's so dynamic and, kind of, the realism,
Mhm.
but given the shift towards more stylized art and everything, it does probably to the younger crowd look a bit like your dad's Batman and not
Yeah,
not real fresh these days.
yeah.
But yeah, look, I think this is a great page. I
Mhm.
mean, for the price.
It's fantastic. I
Yeah,
mean, great art.
yeah,
Beautiful angles on each panel, right?
yeah.
And perspective.
Mhm. The
You
black
know,
spotting, yeah, look at it, like, all over the page. Really, really well done.
yeah. I mean, that's my question. I have same question as Yo. It's like I think maybe a couple years ago, everyone would have unanimously agreed that Neil Adams could be up on the Mount Rushmore of important comic artists.
I think
Um,
he is. Yeah.
yeah. And so, do you still think that? You
I
still think
still think
that?
that, yeah. I mean, he did so much for the industry, helping the artists, standing up for artists. I mean, kind of revolutionizing. I mean, look what he just did with Batman. I mean, he think of kind of mid '60s Batman to kind of what he did with
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
character and
Green Lantern, Green
yeah,
Arrow, and
exactly.
then like the social consciousness stuff,
Hmm,
and
hmm.
then the that run on X-Men. Oh my
Oh
gosh.
my God, yeah,
Sentinel, I mean, forget about it, man. That was just crazy.
yeah.
That blew my mind when I read it, you know. I
Same,
mean,
same.
obviously not at the time, but you know.
I posed the question not that I disagree with Eugene, but more will future generations agree with you? And yeah, I mean, I don't deny anything you said, but
I do also do think that and it was very evident to me in this auction that, and other people have mentioned it too. There is really a DC art problem right now. I mean, I could not believe. Like, I don't think I put it on the list of things to talk about, but that like
Uh,
Jimmy Olsen cover with him tricking Superman into revealing his secret identity. I mean, that is a really good cover, and it sold for like 15 grand. I mean, if that was a Marvel cover of comparable
oh
character
yeah.
quality, art quality, I mean, it would be easily well over double. I mean, it's just kind of mind blowing. I mean, I think unfortunately, it's just kind of the way the market is evolving here. I mean,
Yeah,
DC
all of
art,
us saw it and none of us bid on it, so it's
yeah, yeah.
like DC makes whack movies. I mean, I don't know what the deal is, like
yeah, 15,000,
yeah,
I mean, to
and
me,
it came with a
that's a
color
very
guide.
memorable cover. So yeah.
yeah.
So why do you think that is? Just the movies, Gene.
Yeah.
I
I
mean,
Probably a big part of it.
Only time people like Superman is when Batman's kicking his ass, so
I know.
sad.
Yeah, a friend of mine mentioned to me, like, yeah, I mean, people just don't like Superman.
Yeah.
Not many, anyway.
I mean, if we're following that kind of 30-year theory, we're in kind of an X-Men Spidey era as far as the nostalgia people, and I mean, when I look at CAF or I look at a lot of the YouTube content like Bill's channel and people are talking on there, it's just like X-Men people. I feel like it's so much X-Men related collectors,
Hmm,
and
hmm.
so yeah, I mean this is not in their wheelhouse clearly. All right, yo,
Yes, I won
Bob
this.
Montana, baby,
I won this. So
congrats.
I just love yeah, I love the art and I love the gag. It's basically Archie and Reggie pushing Jughead out to ask the most beautiful girl at the dance for a dance, and they're like setting him up. So they want to see him get dissed, and he comes up to her like such a nervous loser, and backfires on Reggie, and Archie works out great for Jughead because she just happens to love nerds. So this reminds me of me in high school, and
Was this one of
all the
your fantasies?
yeah, the emotions that I went through, and I just thought it was a wonderful gag, wonderful moment. I don't know. Is there anything to do about the Zipatone? or is that, you know, the yellowing of the zipatone? Is there anything to do there?
I don't know.
Not much, right? Yeah.
I feel like it's
maybe peel it off and replace it. I mean, you know.
Yeah, I don't know if it's the zip or the adhesive that's causing that. And so I feel like Zipatone is probably
take it off, use like the lighter fluid to take off the adhesive, and then put on new zip.
It's not worth it, you know.
It's probably not worth it. Yeah.
You want to make it a 4-figure piece.
I don't want. It's not about the money. It's just like I just want to look at that orange shit.
The more you spend, the more it's worth, though.
Yeah.
That's a great line from what was that? One of the auctioneers said that.
Yeah. The more you bid, the more it's worth.
All righty.
Before we go move on from the Archie, though, I mean, I'll just say that I actually bought an Archie strip myself recently, and I've actually in this market that we've had the past couple of years, where the prices for mainstream art has just been so high. I mean, you're lucky to, or at least I have been lucky to get 1 or 2 of those types of pieces a year. And kind of the rest of the time I've been buying kind of stuff like this. I mean, there's so much stuff out there that actually is very cheap, both absolutely and certainly relative to the mainstream superhero
and great art, right?
And it's great art. I mean, there's some really funny stuff, and there's some truly actually some great art out there. I mean, like I'm talking about strips like Secret Agent Corrigan with Allie Williamson, Ben Casey with early Neil Adams, and The Heart of Juliet Jones, Stan Drake. I mean, there's so much of this. Like, at the top of the strip world with kind of Prince Valiant, Flash Gordon, Harriman, Crazy Cat, Calvin and Hobbes, Peanuts. All you have to do is go one step down, and the prices are pennies on the dollar. The art quality is great. And it's so much fun. I mean, I've been having a blast collecting.
Yeah, there were some great Johnny Hazards by Frank Robbins in this auction. Like a great sequence. It was like a 5-strip sequence. Superb. Like
I was watching that. They were going for like 200 to like 500, right?
Much more than they go for in the week. Like the weeklies in it depends on also the period, right? And the quality of the strip. I mean, this was in sequence. It was the art was phenomenal. But you can get them for like $80-100 sometimes. It's so yeah. I would encourage people who feel discouraged by these big prices to just expand your horizons and take a look at some cool stuff other than just the big buck stuff.
Yeah.
And I love how publishers like Fantagraphics they try to collect a lot of this stuff, just kind of stuff that's been out of print a long time, and you could find them and read them, and yeah, I mean, goodbye, good eye,
good eye. I approve.
Thanks, guys.
All right, quietly, Joker #1, pretty modern cover, a couple years old. Pretty big number, I think, for just it's painted, but a variant cover. These days, quietly is all pencil essentially, if that, and digitally inked. But this is a nice watercolor cover. But it felt pretty pricey to me for what it is. I don't know. Similar price to there was like a Bolin Batman that went somewhere around this, and it's unpublished.
That was great. Yeah.
But it was
that was like peak, that was peak Bolin for sure.
Yeah. So I don't know. Is Joker hot? I don't know.
This is just way too out of my wheelhouse to really know.
I mean, it quietly has his fans and very highly regarded modern artist, known for All-Star Superman, obviously. But
it's interesting. I was talking to an artist, a modern artist who is actually a big Quietly fan. Who owns a bunch of Quietly art, and he was trying to think about like, hey, we just had the 80s boom roll into the 90s boom, and he was trying to think like, okay, what's going to be next? Is it going to be Frank? So maybe this is part of that. I don't know. For like what was he, like a 2000s guy, mostly 2010s? He's still working today, right?
Yeah.
I don't. When was Ass Man?
Late 90s, I think. Late 90s is when he got into like the US maybe, and
yeah. So he's just trying to think in terms of like the next wave of nostalgia, et cetera, et cetera. As those 20-year-olds get into 30, 40-year-olds, all of a sudden they got a buck and they can.
I mean, just random thought that popped in my head when you were saying this. So, I mean, that kind of 30-year rule or 25-year rule. I mean, the thing is, the number of people reading comic books in the 80s and the 90s was so much greater than the 2000s and the 20s. Even though, like, 2000s were one of my favorite periods of comic book reading. I thought that, I mean, there was a lot of great art, amazing stories for most of that decade. And but yeah, I mean, like the circulation numbers are a fraction of what they were in previous decades. So I wonder how much that's going to affect that cycle.
You got to assume if we had a Venn diagram of 90s comics readers, the circle of 2000s comics readers would probably be a smaller circle within the 90s circle. I mean, would it even be outside? Any portion of it be outside of that? 90s circle. I don't know.
Well, I mean, I mean, there'd have to be some people that came on board then that would be outside of that. But yeah, I mean, it's a much smaller.
That's a great point, Gene. That's a great point. I guess all you need to do is just to get like 4 or 5 people to like, with some money to be Quietly fans, right? And then all of a sudden they can take the market up. But
and that is certainly possible for stuff like Frank Quietly. But I mean, just kind of when you think about the sheer output of material in that age, and plus, that's also that when we went to decompressed storytelling and digital lettering and stuff. So I mean, the whole thing kind of changed then. I'm actually kind of a bit surprised that the ultra modern art has kind of taken off as much as it has, but a lot of that I think is kind of based on this revolves a bit around this star system that Felix has kind of curated and stuff. Hats off to him.
Also
but
a renaissance, though.
It's definitely going to be interesting.
I mean, it's a renaissance in a way, because the quality of the artists today, I mean, they're just lights out, so much better, right? So then the whole image system and the creator owned projects, it's like this return to some of the spirit and vitality that we saw when we were getting excited about Frank Miller and Daredevil, or Dark Knight or Jaime. There are people like that doing work like that today. So I think that's definitely part of it, is that the art is just better, and Felix is one hell of a marketer. Oh my God, man. He's selling ice to the Eskimos. I mean, the man's good at his job.
Yeah, great. I mean, unreal.
Yeah, I mean, I just thought a really strong number. It's pretty small image, but it is painted and quietly, and so it's just something to note.
More than a Jimmy Olsen, right?
Oh my God, more than that. Yeah, how can that be? How can that be? Oh my God, now my mind's blown. I mean, I mean, that Jimmy Olsen cover, isn't that like Swan or Inventina, and isn't that Adams over? I mean, it's I think Neil Adams inked that too. I mean,
Swan Adams.
Yeah, Swan Adams. I mean, and it's less than a 2-year-old Frank Quietly cover where it's not even kind of his usual medium and stuff, and it's the same. I don't know. I'm kind of blown away with that.
Inefficient market, right, Gene?
I guess, yeah.
Okay. Bob McLeod, early New Mutants, Gene.
Early New Mutants. So, I'm a big New Mutants fan, and this one I definitely had my eye on and actually ended up picking up. And I told a friend of mine, he was like, "Why you have so many of these pages?" But I don't have a page from issues 1 to 3, which are the only ones that McLeod penciled on the run. So McCloud, obviously, I think he penciled and inked the graphic novel. And there's a story that they made him like ink this thing while he was on his honeymoon, and it's kind of soured him. And then he was doing the pencils on the first 3 issues of the book, and it just and they're inked by Mike Gustovich, and I guess it was very, very hard to maintain the level of quality that he was happy with. And so he ended up switching to inks with issue 4. So he only penciled the first 3 issues. I didn't have an example other than the #1 cover of McCloud penciling his co-creation. So really wanted this one. It's got everyone on the team except for Danny Moonstar. So yeah, I was very, very happy to pick this one up.
Wait a second, Gene. Did you just slide past that? You just said you own the #1 cover.
Yeah, I just kind of slid that in there.
Holy shit! Wow, man, that's crazy.
So this is a nostalgia spot, right, Gene?
You don't want to carry that in the tall backpack.
No.
Boyas won't fit in regular sized backpacks, folks. So
yeah, you gotta be careful with those tall backpacks. Yeah, I mean, New Mutants, huge nostalgia for me. I mean, I started collecting, reading comics in 1983, which is when this came out. I mean, I think the first issue I picked up was actually number 13, but I mean, the stuff was cheap and recent enough to go back and pick up those back issues. Really enjoyed those stories. Being a big fan of X-Men, obviously. And yeah, so I mean, love all this stuff. And when you see the stuff show up on dealer sites or on Comic Link or Heritage Weeklies and stuff like that, very oftentimes, if I'm not winning it, I'm definitely in the mix for a good number of these pages. And I will say one thing. So I mean, apparently McCloud was very kind of disenchanted by kind of the experience. I mean, this is his co-creation. He was only able to pencil the first 3 issues, had to switch to inks, and then eventually, I think it was Sal Buscema and Tom Mandrake kind of basically took over. So I don't know if he was pushed out or whatever, but I will say one thing. I mean, this is a nice page, but I will say some of his inks over Sal's pencils in issues 4 to 10 or whatever it was really show how good McCloud is. I mean, I think this guy is incredibly underrated as an inker. Like, I have a page from New Mutants 8, and I guarantee you've never seen a Sal Buscema page look this tight and clean. I mean, it's gorgeous inking. I mean, as good as Terry Austin was probably doing around this time period, and and yet McCloud is not one of the names that's top of mind when you think about the best inkers of that era, and I absolutely think he should be. And again, to be clear, this is his pencils when he's rushing through this, and Mike Gustovich inks. I mean, I think this is a decent looking page. But I don't know if it's on my calf gallery. If not, maybe I'll put it up this week. Page from issue 8. My God, I mean, his ink's spectacular.
Yeah,
I'll be sure to link to your calf gallery, Gene.
Cool. This is a great page with great character acting, and really sells the drama and the conflict that's going on in it. I think it's a neat page. No one's getting punched in the face yet. But it's just cool. It's just cool.
Yeah, all these characters from all around the world, away from home, and kind of fitting in. I mean, it was very easy to relate to as a kid around that time when it came out.
Cool.
Awesome. Congrats, Gene.
Thank you.
Chick Stone as Bob Kane. Joe Giella inks Batman.
Yeah, I don't know any. This wasn't my era of readership of Batman, but I just thought it was a great page design. With the shadow of Batman going down the stairs, chasing the Scarecrow, with the slashed up shadow in that first panel. And yeah, the great, the flow of the page is a little bit off because the top panel runs down to Robin's shoulder, and that kind of takes you down to the bottom panel. So you have a tendency to skip, panels 2 and 3, which are stacked above Batman and Robin. but it's just a cool page. And then the Scarecrow multiplies himself with mirrors to like create 6 times the fear, and then the lettering and the tilt of the panel. It was just so well executed. It just caught my eye. I've never read this particular story, Batman 200, but I just thought it was a cool representation of that era of Batman, and just so artistically done, that there's like a shadow silhouette in each of the first 3 panels, which I think is kind of neat. Just the balance, how it balances the page. Like if he didn't throw Batman and Robin into silhouette into the 3rd panel, that middle tier facing all those scarecrows, then the page would have felt like a little bit unbalanced without that out there. If you just put your thumb over, those silhouettes. So I thought it was awesome. I bid on it, but not enough to win it. I mean, I'm just. What can I say? I'm more of an Archie fan now. I'm just kidding.
And issue 200, you got a lot going on. Batman and Robin the villain, Scarecrow, and 3600. I mean, again, DC not getting the respect.
Yeah,
I'm shocked. Yeah, that like Silver Age Batman. Like, is this what? Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
Yeah. This is a great page. I would have loved to have this in my collection. In retrospect, should I have pushed it a little bit? Yeah, but 3600 that's not the price I would have paid. It would have been way more than that,
right.
if one guy pushed, if I pushed the winner. And then I got to think about college tuition, and then also, if it let's say ends up being 5,000, then okay, well, is that something that I could use to get something that's more meaningful, right? So I appreciate this aesthetically. It just usually has to line up. My mission statement, it has to line up with a story I've loved generally, if I'm going to pay a big price for it. If it's like Archie and it's a cool gag, it's sort of like a self-contained story, I can appreciate that, and that's fine. But anyway, just great one. It got away.
Doesn't strike me as a YoKuri page.
No, wrong era, right? It's like 80s nostalgia or modern. That's pretty much what I do. So
okay, Hush cover. Jim Lee. We've been talking about it on this show, Gene. I don't know if you watched, but like, Jim Lee was lights out, hot, like freaking nuclear explosion, and he's gotten soft, extremely soft since then. I mean, at least relatively. And so, objectively, is this the best Hush cover? No, nowhere near. But it is a Hush cover, and
I think it's pretty good, actually. I mean, it's not like you got a tiny Batman or something, or it's nothing like. I mean, this is objectively a pretty good cover. I mean, I know a lot of people are throwing shade at it, but I think it's pretty good, and the price seems very light to me.
Mm-hmm. I mean, relative to a couple of the covers, I think the last cover went for 130 something. I'm sorry, let me check it.
Yeah.
This cover in October.
Oh yeah.
137.5.
That's a better cover, but
it's a better.
Oh
cover.
Yeah. Right, but you're talking 160 something percent more. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean the one that just sold. I mean, this reminds me of that Daredevil page. I mean, I think this could easily have been like an $80,000 cover. A year and a half ago. And we saw in the last auction that panel was there. I think it was a panel page that just completely bombed as well from Hush. Kind of surprising to see, a couple of examples where the consignor or consignors got really beat down on that.
Yeah. There was an interior page in this auction that went, I believe, around 50,000. It had a bunch of protagonists: Batman, Superman, Catwoman, Let me see if I could find that.
Yeah, 60 grand, and
Okay.
that to me
Yeah.
is a strong price. So I guess it is kind of hit or miss.
So yeah, this interior beating the cover.
That's a great page, though. I'd rather have that. I mean, honestly, all honesty, I guess I'm not much of a cover guy. You know,
I mean, traditionally,
sucker for kind of
and there's this debate. Covers have always been accepted as being more valuable, I guess. But here's a scenario where you have a great interior, splash, basically, versus a solid cover. I don't know.
Yeah, that's a tough call. I mean, I think I'd probably take the cover by a hair, but I can see why someone would take this page. I mean, that's a great image there.
Yeah.
It's kind of the inset panels that kind of ruin it for me, actually.
Right.
This the Catwoman panel I like, maybe not the other two at the bottom, but yeah, I mean, I agree that this was light. That's what I was thinking during the bidding. I said, this is where it's going to end. I wish I had money.
Yeah, right.
You know?
There's only so much to go around these days, even at these prices. Because one thing that isn't being said is that even though some of the stuff has really come off the boil. I mean, it's not like these you look at these prices and say, wow, that's cheap. I mean, it's not like everyone's got 55 grand, or if you were going to go against whoever won it, I mean, chances are you may have had to push it to 60 plus. So it's we're still talking about a lot of money, which is why it's kind of
190
precarious.
Garfields.
What was that?
190 Garfields.
We're pricing it
190
in
later Garfields. That early stuff can get a bit pricey.
I mean, I was talking to some other people like and I just feel like a lot of these prices are, good prices, but just not at the point where you say, oh, this is just I have to buy. It's a steal. Like, I can't let this go. It's just like above those levels where the market is just hanging in there, and you always get lower but not cheap prices, and
Yeah.
yeah, does that change? I don't know, but I feel like everyone senses like it's weak, but can it be weaker? Let me wait it out, and is that a decision just that they're strategically making, or is it just that the vast majority of people don't have money like they did, or bought too much, and are more selling than buying these days, which that's kind of that's my story. I'm probably selling more than I'm buying, or I'm selling in order to buy.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, when I look at listings, it's just nonstop, just flow of art. Not just at auction, but on CAF and eBay. Even eBay is just getting a lot of stuff these days.
Yeah. The weeklies, the Heritage weeklies are up to like 270, 280 pieces. Before they were running sort of low 200s. Took them 3 months to process my consignment, which I was really unhappy about. I mean, I just pitched a fit. Rightfully so. I mean, they've always processed it within like 2 or 3 weeks, and it's up there. So I was.
Hey, you gotta tell them Gene, man. You gotta tell them
Right.
Send them the link to this video next time. All right. Hey, you know who I am.
You know my Uncle Gene. My Uncle Gene.
All right.
Oh,
Savage Sword #1, Red Sonja.
Yeah, so this is squarely in my wheelhouse. I mean, when I started collecting, or started reading comics, really, it was comics that a friend of mine lent me, and he was into X-Men and Red Sonja, and so those were the comics I borrowed from him. So consequently, I became interested X-Men and Red Sonja. And yeah, so this is a page from Savage Sword 1. I think it's the first first time she has a solo story outside of Conan. Really nice page. I think this is the first time John Buscema is drawing her. I mean, I was interested in this at a price, but I think this just got way away. I don't know if it was because some first kind of these. I mean, heritage in the description kind of emphasized kind of this what I just said. First John Buscema, first outside Red Sonja story. So I don't know if that got that crowd into it, or if it's just some old. I mean, there are some older collectors who also are very interested in this stuff. I know I've gone up against them before, so maybe one of them won it. I'm not sure, but yeah, unfortunately, not meant to be way beyond kind of my comfort zone, but very cool page there.
Hey, I'm surprised. How well Marcos inks Buscema. It feels like he tries to maintain some level of fidelity. I don't know how detailed Buscema's pencils are, but
yeah, I think it's good. I mean, I know I heard a couple of friends of mine kind of said, I'm not a big fan of Marcos over Buscema, but I think it looks pretty decent actually.
Yeah, great wash. It's awesome.
So almost 20,000 for Savage Sword 1 page with Red Sonja.
Mm-hmm. It's a killer page. I love it.
Strong price, Gene.
Yeah, I think it is a strong price. I mean, I've always had more affinity to the. I believe there's another Red Sonja story in Savage Sword 1, the one that was reprinted in Marvel Feature Volume 2, number 1. And that Marvel Feature Volume 2, number 1 is actually one of the first comics I ever read. And so I have a page from that story. And if I didn't have a page from that story and kind of one popped up, I probably would have gone to the mat. This story, I don't really have a lot of nostalgia for. I just think it's very cool. I mean, it's well executed. It's early. But yeah, there just wasn't that draw, that kind of go to the mat type of feel that I would have had with the page from the other story in that issue, which is, if I did mention, it's Esteban Morato with Neil Adams inks. It's beautiful art.
Oh, okay. Wow. Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's good to see Buscema getting strong prices. I mean, Buscema Conan, at least, there's so many freaking pages, know.
I know. Yeah, actually, I ended up I picked up a piece recently, a nice Beelit page, Conan and Beelit in action. I realized I did. I mean, I actually think I have one, but I didn't have one by Buscema and Chan that I liked, and so yeah, I ended up picking that up recently.
So would Buscema Conan fall under that Archie reasonably priced sometimes category?
Some of it is, yeah. I mean, there's still.
I mean, if you don't need an A+ example,
right? Look, I mean, the Heritage Weeklies have Buscema Conan pages in almost every auction. I mean, most of them are, not great, but a lot of those go for 3 figures or kind of in the 1,000s. I mean, some of the better ones will go for a little more than that. But yeah, there's still definitely stuff you can find for under 4,000, let's say, for a pretty good panel page. So yeah, I mean, it's that's something that's still within the reach of a lot of collectors, I think.
Yeah. All right. Getting back to what we started off with, Ronin number 1.
Yeah, not the
Andy has connection to this page, right, Andy? Yo.
I mean, I love Frank Miller's Ronin. I think issue 1 in particular is some of his best draftsmanship. I just wanted to point out that though this page was purchased, this was the one that was purchased at auction for $35,000 and it only sold for 13. So, and why did that happen? It's unfortunately it doesn't have the main character in it, right? And it's not there. Are two segments in this book. One is the like fantasy of like old Japan that Miller inks in this beautiful cross hatching method that he's really trying to make it look like his version of Lone Wolf and Cub. So he just killed himself doing the inking. So it's like Miller pencils, Miller inks, and probably his finest mark making as an artist, in my opinion. So then when he does the stuff that's set in like the futuristic New York, he employs a different technique. So it's more of like a Mobius inspired Frank Miller.
Very Mobius-y. Yeah.
Mobius, right? So there's that clash. So I feel like a old Japan price was paid for for like a newer new like the Lone Woman Cub sub tends to be a little more pricey and more favored. So I feel like that kind of a price was paid for this kind of a page at the time. And maybe so he had an underbidder, right? But then with him to push the underbidder the last time around, like maybe there was like the third person was down at 12, maybe that kind of thing. Yeah. If even that underbidder was still around or hadn't picked up a different page by that point, right? So that's sort of the danger of buying something at auction and then having to sell it, within a year or two. Unfortunately, like I've done that before, where I've sold stuff at auction, and fortunately for me, it was sort of like most of that stuff was on like a rising market. But then I've been getting, just in this kind of a tape, you're just going to get burned a little bit. So unfortunately, it was just but I just thought it was an interesting market dynamic, and I just wanted to talk about some of the factors that what I think played into it, just in terms of the aesthetics of the page and how it compares to other pages in the story.
Yeah, 35 grand for this page just didn't make any sense for me when it happened. I mean, this thing had sold 2 years prior for the exact same price that it just sold for 13.2. So it's completely round trip, and it's completely flat over the last more than 2.5 years now, which is kind of interesting. I mean, there's no gain. Maybe just because it's been a bit overexposed at this point and traded hands too many times in such a short time frame.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is a nightmare scenario for the consigner. Feel terrible. Yeah, I mean, I think, they say buy what you love, and you can't go wrong. But I have no doubt the guy loved this stuff. Loved Miller or whatever, and but shit happens. Like life happens, and if you don't pay the right price, it's just like, man, I mean,
my mantra is pay for the A, right? So if you're going to spend over, whatever, a couple of $1,000s on anything, it better be really freaking good, so that either you're willing to hold it through thick and thin, or if you do have to sell it again, that there's this aesthetic quality that you'll get more people to show up for it, right? Versus being like, oh, hey, it's a Ronin C page. Yeah, like anybody who has a Ronin B page is not going to be like, okay, I'm going to buy this, to upgrade, right? So that's why I feel like even if you pay a little more, pay for the A. Yeah. Because the value stuff, the value buys never really work.
Yeah, I don't know if this is just one specific example, outlier, but yeah, I mean, Miller was extremely hot, and I think the last price on this was a reflection of that to some degree, and yeah, I mean,
yeah, and to a certain extent, I helped create this monster, as you all know. So
yeah.
The Ronin monster,
the new destroyer of markets. All right, let's see what we got here. Okay, we put this one in. Brian Bolland, some British cover.
Yeah. This was one of my picks. Actually, I have a new data point on this. Let me just look something up really quickly. Yeah. Okay. So apparently, this is what UK Batman annual cover. It's it's Brian Bolland. Color Bolland is kind of hit or miss. I mean, a lot of people seem to really like the black and white, have a strong preference for it. But on the other hand, like that the greatest Joker story or whatever cover sold for privately for insane amounts. So it's certainly not a universal statement. But anyway, I believe the backstory behind this is that Mitch at Graphic Collectibles had this, sold it for 70 grand in 2017, 2018, I think, at San Diego Comic Con. And I had heard from various people. I heard somebody had been offered it for 80. Somebody had been offered it for $125. I guess nobody stepped up at these kind of levels. I think the general consensus was that was probably a bad overpay. So I guess it ended up at auction, and the market has spoken. I mean, it's nowhere near 80, 125, 70, the 70 grand purchase price. Another bit of an unfortunate situation. I don't know who the consigner is on this one, though.
I mean, I had my eye on this one just because it was colored, and I felt maybe some of the other pieces might get more attention. Although this was on the first day, so I mean, it went lower than I expected it to, but.
I do know who. I'm not going to mention names, but I do know who bought this, and he's very, very happy with it and thrilled by the price, actually. So, I guess it all circle of OA life. It's worked out for him, but I mean, not for whoever the consigner is, unfortunately.
Yeah, I'd be thrilled with this page. It's like, let's say you're not in the mix for a Killing Joke page, and you want a very nice all-in Batman piece with Joker, like. I mean, this is a fantastic consolation prize at the price, So I mean, I thought this was a very good buy, and congrats to the winner.
Yeah,
I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of pen and ink here. Obviously it's colored, watercolored, or whatever, but it's not like the paint kind of overwhelms the line work.
No, sure.
So I mean, I thanks for adding that color, Gene. Had no idea this was available or trading hands. It was the first time I'd seen it, and that's pretty crazy.
The whole world, a whole deep OA private deal world out there, right?
Yeah.
I mean, what brings few nightmares we discussed today, just big losses going to auction, which in the recent past has been almost an impossibility. People felt pretty invulnerable.
Yeah.
I know I've put stuff up, like I probably was like peak balling that I consign, with my Dread cover, right? Yeah. But I mean, do people get rid of this because they're forced to? Are they forced sellers here, or I mean, they're trying to move it privately at a higher price. They're not willing to take a loss or move it at break even. Then they go to auction and just get destroyed, essentially.
And
what is the psychology here, or the situation?
Yeah, I feel like I've seen that before too, like many times before in the past, though, like where people try to move it privately and then put it to auction, and then it never does. Probably would have been better off just being a little more reasonable on the price in the private market. But
I mean, I'm the specific lots escape me, but I believe there's a couple other lots I heard in this auction that were shot privately and also greatly. I mean, not to this extent, but greatly underperformed versus the private asking prices. So. Yeah.
The total 180, because we we used to talk in the past couple years of pieces that were shopped privately at, certain prices,
Mhm.
and then get to auction and end up getting multiples of those
Right,
prices,
right.
right? And
Yeah,
now it's just totally reverse course.
that was certainly the reality for a while. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you think, Gene, do you think, um, uh, talking to the dealers generally, is their inventory heavy right now? Are they having trouble moving stuff that they've purchased from prior auction? Because it used to be this thing where they would just buy, hold it for a year, flip it,
Yeah.
buy, hold it for a year, flip it, and if they can't move the stuff they got, then a certain sense they stop buying. So are these the dealer bidding plus maybe the absence of like a couple of whales that got filled? I mean, is that an explanation, partial explanation?
I candidly, I don't know. I don't really talk to a lot of dealers on a regular basis, and since the only conventions I really go to are usually San Diego, New York, and so it's been a while since the last show I've been to. So I'm not really sure what exactly is going on. I know, I mean, I hear through the grapevine, because I have a lot of sources, obviously, that there is still a lot of dealer buying, which is certainly not surprising, especially in a bit of a down market where there are some deals to be had. But I don't know if people are overstuffed on inventory,
Hmm.
or how well things are moving these days.
Yeah. Okay.
I do know that there were a lot of complaints that that it was tough to replenish inventory the last couple of years because everyone wanted to go to auction and everything. I wonder how that might be changing,
Yeah.
since things do seem to be coming off the
That's
boil
a
a
good
bit.
point. Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Are you a buyer these days or more of a seller these days, Gene?
I mean, personally, my story is this. I mean, I don't know if if a lot of people are aware, but I mean, I was pretty much buy only from '02 to 15. And then at that point, I finally got to the point where I needed to start to curate things, and where prices were high enough where I started to do a little more selling to buy. And then, I kind of, by 2019 ish, I was kind of a little burned out, and I got much more into sports cards. I've been very much into trading cards the last 3-4 years now. And so I think like 2020 was very, very quiet year for me, and I actually did quite a bit of selling between like 2017 and 2020. Obviously, at this point, I regret those every single one of those sales on a financial basis, but I think I ended up cutting more muscle than I would have liked. I mean, I thought I was trimming kind of the fat out of the collection, and kind of oversold. So I've kind of been making up for it the last year and a half, I would say, or so. So I pretty much, like last year, I think by quantity, I picked up more than 100 pieces. Sold two. I think I've sold one or two pieces this year, and I'm up to like 70 something purchases. Granted, I mean, these are mostly at the very lower end of things. Like I said, with the exception
Garfield's.
of
Yeah.
one or two.
Sorry.
What was that?
Garfield's.
Garfield. So yeah, and I'm definitely doing more buying, but not crazy in terms of competing at the higher ends for the most part.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I had a good slug go to Heritage the last month, and just seeing what's been happening. Like me as a seller, if I'm so, basically what I'm doing, same is just trading, a bunch of smaller for bigger, most of the time,
Mhm.
and probably all that any buying is probably going to stop for a while as I just kind of appreciate my collection a little more for a bit and just chill out. But yeah, if I sell, it's just I can't see myself sending it to an auction house anymore. I'd rather break even or sell at a small loss. And I've sold numerous things at losses on calf, like privately,
Mhm.
knowing or assuming that, you know what, if I send it to auction, it's just going to get blown out. So I might as well just take the hit now, and you know, everyone gets a better deal than the other way around. Um, yeah, I mean, I don't know, you know, you've sold a lot, but now you're slowing down as far as just, you know, big transactions. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I think part of it is like I've been fortunate to have achieved like a lot of my goals in terms of the 80s vintage stuff that I wanted to acquire. And I came to the conclusion that like I really only need one of each. Right. So I went through a period where I was kind of, gobbling up Ronins, but then I realized, okay, well, hey, two, three, and four, they're always going to be like lesser to me than the one page that I really love the most. So why, like my love for that book is sort of just one page is enough to do it for me. So I think that was part of it in slowing down my big purchasing. And I had a list of stuff that I wanted to go after, and I've just been lucky enough that, right time, right place, right right financial setup that I was able to pull it off, right? So now I just find myself being really patient and really trying to work on my buy filter. I wrote out a mission statement, which sort of locked me into like a tighter range of behavior. Like I still screw up and I buy stupid shit sometimes. but less than I used to.
Chick Stone, Joe Giella.
Yeah. Yeah, like less than I used to. I think I'm being a little bit more disciplined, and I just I think it's probably a natural evolution of once where people get to at some point, when they have enough. I've toyed with the idea of like, hey, what if I trimmed it down really to just one page per like book that I love, because I have a bunch of stuff where I got multiples. And then maybe, or what if I just had like 10 pieces? Like, have you guys ever known anybody who did that, who went from like having a whole bunch of stuff, just being like, I just want my 10 favorite pieces. I want them on the wall. And, it'll give me more firepower to get like truly a triple A plus
Mhm.
stuff, without having all this quantity. Do you know anybody who's ever trimmed down to that extent?
Uh, well, I have one friend comes to mind. He did that, but the problem is once he got to that point, then it became like 10-0 or 10 to, he might have one piece left or something. So
So like we're sharks, we need to keep swimming.
yeah,
We
yeah.
need to keep. I mean, I love the hunt. The hunt is it's
Mhm.
so fun. Oh my gosh. I mean, just like looking through this, looking for a deal, like, oh, is it gonna come at the price I like? I mean, this auction was fun, like I ended up with an Archie strip, and fell short on a couple of other things that I was looking at. But I mean, hell, I had a great time. And it's cool, even like the stuff you can't afford, just looking at it and
Mhm.
you know, gawking at the prices, and just being a part of the action is fun.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm curious what's going to happen. We'll use this kind of page as an example. I don't know. Uh, from my personal opinion, I don't think this is going to happen again. If this comes to auction, in the next few years, um, does the person keep it? I don't know. Like there was a lot of pieces that went for huge numbers in the last couple of years that I'm positive people extended themselves to get, and I have a couple of my personal nostalgia pieces that I'm thinking of that were just huge, absolutely huge numbers, um, that I was right there, for, and like thank God I didn't win, in the sense that if they come back to market, they won't hit those prices again. I'm positive of it, and will be a more reasonable opportunity for me. If they don't ever come back, then well, I lost, and I also didn't end up paying hundreds of thousands for a piece of art that's nostalgia filled for me. But I don't know. Yeah, I'm just I just wonder, what things are going to look like over the next, few years.
Mhm.
I've only been collecting now. This is my 6th year, Gene, right?
Oh, wow.
Well, yeah. Yeah, I mean, what's this cycle going to look like? Who knows? And so, um,
Yeah, I think I'm like 5 years in or something like that. Like, we're babies next to Eugene.
Well, I will just say this. Yeah, I don't know how things are going to shake out. I just know for me personally, like I said, I mean, there was a period kind of towards the end of the last decade. I started to curate my collection some more, and made a big real estate purchase and stuff. Ended up selling a lot of art to finance that, and I thought. And this is by no means going down to 10 pieces or 50. I mean, this is like going down from 500 to 400 pieces or something like that. Maybe even 300s, high 300s at one point. But even at that level, I just felt like, wow, I just love this stuff so much. And I felt like I had sold too much at that point. And so I've been kind of replenishing,
Mhm.
filling out the collection again the last couple of years. And so I don't know how things are going to go, but I look, I've been doing this now for more than 20 years. I love this stuff. They say, almost everybody's going to end up selling this stuff at the end. At this point, even when I'm ancient, the thought of parting with this stuff before I die just is just, I mean, it's just such anathema to me. I mean, I really hope that I'm hoping to look. I mean, I'm sure I'm going to end up selling a good chunk at some point, but I really want to give a good core collection to my kids if they're interested in it. I would really love to see this stuff go to them, because I really don't even want to see this stuff leave my hands in my lifetime, to be perfectly honest. I mean,
do
I love
your
this
kids
stuff so much.
read comics at all, Gene?
You know,
Manga, anything like
I
that?
just haven't had a lot of time lately, but I mean, I have tons of stuff downloaded, digitally, and for a while there, when I had a chance, I was doing a lot of reading a few years ago. The last couple of years and stuff, I just haven't had the bandwidth for
How
it.
how about your kids? Your kids.
My kids, yeah, I mean, look, I mean, free comic book day like that. I mean, they've the last couple of years. I mean, we go to the Forbidden Planet here in New York City. They give out I think they give out like packs of like 36 comics, and yeah, my kids love the comics. They love the characters, the action figures. I mean, it's funny. I mean, you'd think, being the kids of hardcore collectors, that there would be a lot of kids that are into this stuff, and it's actually pretty shocking. I mean, almost none of my friends' kids have any interest in this. I mean, maybe the movies, but like the actual comics and stuff like that, not really. So look, obviously I have very young kids, or reasonably young kids, so a lot can change between now and 10, 15, 20 years from now. But right now, I mean, just knowing kind of what the stuff they're interested in, the kind of how their minds work, I could see them actually staying interested in this stuff. So I am, knock on wood, hopeful that they will be part of that next generation.
It's good to hear. I mean, my kids, they're into comics, but it's none of the stuff that we read, and I don't even think a lot of it is even, appropriate for them, as far as the big two, these days, it's there's kind of a different subset of all ages now, and
Yeah.
be it the girls like the Reina, all the
Mhm.
Reina stuff,
Yeah. Right. Right.
and or manga, or like Plants vs Zombies, like that type of stuff. Um, yeah, I mean, it's totally different from when I was growing up, and so I don't know how that ends up panning out, but
Yeah, they don't
yeah,
have the patience for floppies. My kids don't read floppies. The monthlies,
Yeah.
they're not into. They want the whole story there. They want to binge it. My son loves the Uncle Scrooge books, the
Okay.
Barks and Rosa. He
Hmm.
likes the Simpsons comics. He
Hmm.
loves those compilations. My kids both love Calvin and Hobbes. Bone by Jeff Smith
Hmm.
is big in my house. But the superhero shit, they're just not that into. Like I think my son likes Miles Morales, but it's it's more like he likes the movies than he's really into the comics themselves.
There's movies and video games for Miles these days.
Yeah.
Okay. I thought that was a great talk, and Gene, thanks so much for coming on and
my
giving us
pleasure.
your
Thanks for
insights.
having me.
Yeah, it's great having you, Gene.
Yo, awesome as always, and yeah, I thought it was just a great conversation. So thanks so much.
Thanks for having us, Jason. It was a great time.
Hey,
Yeah, a lot of fun.
Anytime, the open invitation, and hopefully, you're always on, and I'm grateful for that. And Gene, hopefully you're willing to come on again sometime.
Sure, absolutely.
Awesome. Thanks.
All right.
Yeah, we're gonna sign out now. Bye.
All right.